What's up? I'm Empathetic Chicken. And I want to talk about something that I talked about with my therapist earlier because I feel like it might be helpful to other people who are kind of on in a similar boat. So basically she asked me how do I know when I can trust myself, because I've been having this ordeal where it's hard for me to trust myself. I mean, it's been like this for a while, so I'm finally challenging that little belief. And so we had this long little talk about how I've been distinguishing what to trust and what not to trust. So I'm gonna attempt to explain it the best I can, and hopefully it'd be helpful to anybody who might be in a similar boat. So yeah, I'm gonna be talking about some concepts that you might have heard about if you're into the spiritual stuff, but I'll try to explain a little bit about them in case you're not familiar with them. But I mean, you've probably heard them. So I don't know, I kind of like to explain it to my therapist when she asked me that. She was just how do you know when you can trust yourself? And I kind of was well, usually I know that I can't trust my thoughts all the time, because I feel like my mental realm is just freaking backstabbing and just self-sabotagey. So most of the times I question my thoughts because they're not always for my best interest or whatever. So I sort of go off of feelings, I guess, which anytime something hurts, I'm usually alright, hold up, let me just, before I even get into all that, the way I kind of understand myself is, so there's this higher self, if you've heard of that little concept in spiritual stuff, the higher self is just kind of the higher self. No, it's just kind of this, there's no limits on the higher self. It's kind of it knows best. It's above all the worldly matters. It's kind of beyond understanding almost. I can't even describe it. I don't know. Whereas in contrast, I'm just breaking into duality, even though it's not as simple as that. But whatever. For purposes of this and understanding, it's easy to separate things in little pieces, little neat little categories. But that's not the whole of it. It's all, But whatever. That's aside from the point. I'm gonna stop going in rabbit holes. So basically, I kind of distinguish my little higher self is the one who's not affected by fear and limitations, versus my little ego, which is kind of, oh my Jesus, speaking of fear, that scared me. Oh my God, how are you doing? Come join me. Come to my video, my son. Oh my God, I'm so darling. Alright. Oh, meet Sid. He just wants out, but I'm gonna get up in a minute. But I just need to do this video, my son. Yeah, I know. Anyway, my little higher self, a little limitless, and then the lower self, or whatever you want to call it, ego, is the fear-driven side of me that's out to keep me comfortable and safe and in the familiar, which is not necessarily a bad thing unless what was familiar isn't helping me grow. Oh, he's just gonna settle in. Oh my God. Okay, it's fine. I love you. Oh my God. So, sorry, I got distracted. The cat has entered, and my attention is distracted here. Let's let the cat out, because otherwise he ain't gonna let me do this video. And I'm sorry, I'm being lazy. I don't feel like editing. So we're gonna take this journey together. I'm sorry. Come on, Sid. Excuse the darkness. We're going into the abyss. Into the depths of our fears. Alright, come on, Sid. Get out there, son. Alright, see you soon. Alright, anywho, sorry, we going back to it. Bear with me now. Fear not, for we're back in business. Okay. So let me just get this back where we were at. Okay, sorry. In real life, this is it. So yeah. So like little fear-driven self versus like don't have no concept of the fear, like don't matter, don't apply. And I guess if you want to like change out the little ego, you could like insert like the little inner child concept, because I mean children kind of like, you know how they like throw a little tantrum sometimes when they have needs that aren't like being met, or like when they want things. I feel like that's sort of what like our ego does, is it kind of like throws these little tantrums to get our attention, to show us something that we like, either that we need or we think we need, because it's trying to like bring that little sense of comfort. Like, ugh, I feel like it made a lot more sense when I was explaining it to her, but I'm trying here. I don't like this angle. So let me just little notes, because my mind don't never work. It's like I'll have this little inspiration to talk, and then it just leaves when I turn on the camera. So yeah, so like the ego, I feel like I think of it as sort of like what we're taught, like all the little limitations and the expectations, the little societal programming that we get, the instructions, like this is how it's supposed to be, like this is what I'm supposed to have to feel complete. Like it's basically like lies, but it's alright to cling, like it's alright to cling to that. Like the little ego is like our little sense of identity. So like sometimes we need like the little lies to like build ourselves, like just create this little like concept, like self-concept to navigate like the little reality, like the physical world. But like in the little spiritual world, none of that applies, because it's just like energy, I guess. I don't want to get too like crazy with this, even though like there's people out there that just talk about this kind of stuff like it's nothing, and I don't know why I have such a like resistance to accepting it. I mean, I guess because it's hard for me to trust myself, like partly is what this is about. So it's like, see, that's coming from the ego, like my little fear of like seeming crazy. That's an ego-based thing, because I'm worrying about like how I'm perceived, and I'm feeling like someone else's perception of me can like affect my values. Does that make sense? So like another way I know I can't trust myself is when I'm like seeking out things for comfort. Like if I have a fear of like being rejected or something, like that's telling me that I'm believing that I'm not enough and that I'm gonna be rejected. I don't know how to explain this, because like on a higher level, like the little higher self or whatever, it's free from all these like conditions. Like in order to like be worthy, you have to like do this or be this or get this, whatever, blah blah blah. So none of that stuff really applies on like the spiritual level of like my little essence or whatever, like whatever my soul, I mean whatever this is. Yeah. So whenever I'm trying to like, you know, oh, maybe I already said it. I'm gonna just stop. I wrote some little notes, so let me go with my notes. Oh, Jesus. Alright, let me just read this, so maybe it'll help. So, I mean, before I even read this, like another little lesson I've been learning. Sorry, I thought I heard my cat. Another little lesson I've been learning is like unconditional love, and it's like so hard, but not at the same time. Like I've been trying to like learn to love myself, and like a lot of times people want to like only love themselves when they have like evidence outside of them, like say a partnership or something. Like they want someone else to like show them that they matter and that they're lovable. Like that's what I was talking about in my last video. So like if you haven't watched that, you might want to watch that, because I was just kind of like riffing off of that a little bit. So I think we just like hold on to this idea that we need like something else to prove that we're lovable or whatever. Like, so we won't accept ourselves until like we see that acceptance from someone else, when like really we're the ones that are supposed to accept ourselves, like, because it ain't guaranteed nowhere else. But that doesn't like, that's not like a reflection of your like true worth or whatever, like, because like really you are like the source of the love that you seek. Like I don't know, that's just what I'm what I'm learning. But anyway, I'm gonna read this little note, because I write myself little notes, because sometimes I'll be like in my little higher self, and other times I'll be in my little fears and stuff, so I can't like trust those fears. So I gotta like leave myself little like reminders and be like, hey, go higher, like this ain't it. So I said, yourself, I just want you to remember that unconditional love is love without guarantees or expectations. It's safe to love anyway because there is no void to fill. You are already whole. No one owes you anything. You only owe it to yourself to remember that and stand in your true worth. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. There was something on the back I had to read. So basically, like, I'm learning that there's nothing that I have to do to deserve my own love. Like, it sounds so cheesy talking about this, but whatever. Like, this is the journey that I'm on, and I gotta talk about it. So, yeah. How this all ties back into, like, trusting myself. Basically, I've learned to, like, catch myself when I'm trying to look for the love and acceptance, like, outside of myself. Like, whenever I'm, like, clinging to, like, certain outcomes, or, like, trying to just, like, get myself out of something, like, distract myself from feeling something, it means I'm coming too far away from myself. Like, I need to come back to my true self, and not like this little projection of what I think I am. I feel like I'm not making any sense. So for example, like if I was to use the little story that I mentioned in the last video, where I was talking about like my relationship with my ex, and how like the whole time I was just like, well, he didn't choose me, like, I wasn't good enough, I was second best, blah 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 blah. Like, I feel like we tell ourselves these certain kind of stories, and then we look for like basically like little plot points to like justify the story. Like, we're just telling our own little, we're writing our own little story here, and picking out little like perceptions, like little details that like justify the story. And so like if you live a certain story for so long, you kind of like have these little patterns of how you think, and you're constantly just trying to like go along with that story to make it like make sense. And so like recently I have been like challenging the little story. I'm writing a new one. I don't like the old one. Like, bye bye. Like, I keep it for reference. Like I told my therapist this. Like, I'll keep my little book for reference, but I'm starting a new one. I ain't like, the rules don't apply the same way they did in that story. Like, this is a new book, so I've been trying to like tell a new story, but like my little head, my little ego or whatever wants to cling to the old one, and like as painful as it was like what I knew. It was comfortable. So like my little instinct is to just like keep interpreting things in the same way that I used to like justify the old story, when it's not necessarily like true, and it's not necessarily the only way to like view the things that are happening, but it's just the way that like my little ego wants to define them so that it feels safe. Does that make sense? Like I created a certain like identity for myself, and so now that I'm trying to like break away from that, it's like all the little fears are coming up, and they're like, no, like, no, you need these, like, you need this little story to keep you, like, you know, protected, because you don't know what's out there, man. Like, you don't know what it's like out there. I do. Freaking Quasimodo quote, where that priest guy in it. Sorry, alright, I'm done. That's weird that would come up. It's sort of like that, though. Like, you know how in the freaking The Hunchback of Notre Dame, however you say it, the little, like, priest guy was, like, trying to protect him from the world because because I don't know how to explain it. Because he would represent, like, the expectations of society, like you're supposed to be a certain way, like you can't be who you really are, like you're not good enough because you're like a hunchback or whatever. Even though like he was a beautiful soul, like at heart, like it doesn't matter what he looked like. That wasn't the point, like, because the physical is an illusion. Like it's just the essence that matters. It's the little soul that counts. So yeah, he was trying to protect him, and like yeah, he might have got rejected. But, like, it didn't matter because them people didn't understand him anyway. Like, they was wasteful with them freaking tomatoes. They should have kept them. Sorry. For anybody who doesn't know that movie, like, you probably do. It's a Disney movie. Like, that was really sad. That makes me cry when I watch that part when he gets, like, the little tomatoes thrown at him. That's horrible. But anyway, like, I don't know where that was coming from. But back to what I was saying, we going down some freaking tangent lanes right now. I guess like the ego wants to cling to the story because it feels safe, and that's what we know. And the unknown is just kind of like unknown. So the mind don't know how to handle that. So it's trying to make sense of it by interpreting it the old way, which is usually painful if it's in my case, if it's like in my case where like the story you've told has been like one of like self-hatred. So one way I know when I can't trust myself is when I'm like trying to tell the old story, and when I feel like the pain, like the painful feelings of like what it means to carry that story, like the pain is usually a signal that it needs to be like released. Ugh, excuse me. This is another thing I'm learning here, because I mean, I don't know if anybody seen my little Instagram way back, not too way back, but the other day I put pain is the illusion of disconnection exposing itself. And I don't even know how to explain that, but I know what it means in my head. But basically, like, I guess the outer reality is like a reflection of you, even if it seems like separate. It's not. It's all like you are the source. Like you're creating this junk. Like as weird as it is. Like I don't know if you believe it. I believe it. Like I'm seeing it. But basically, like, if you believe in a lie, it's gonna hurt. And usually when we're, like, undervaluing ourselves, it's a lie. And that's why it hurts, because you're not meant to do that. Like, the higher self has no like limits, and like you can't quantify like your worth on the higher plane. Like it doesn't apply there. Like these little man-made little rules and stuff, none of that makes sense on the higher realms. So like your higher self knows that, but your little ego self is scared and wants to cling to like, the familiar. So I trust my little higher self over my little lower self, because the lower self operates from like the little fear and trying to stay small and in the same boat. But I'm trying to grow here, and I'm not trying to like hold myself back anymore. So yeah, as uncomfortable as it is, I'm gonna listen to my higher self. Yeah. I think another way I know like I can trust myself is, or I can't, I guess, is when I'm too much in my head. Like I was saying, like my little thoughts, they're trying to rationalize things that can't be like rationalized. Like some things are just unexplainable and I don't know. There's just some things that logic can't, you can't. See? Like, it's indescribable. I just can't explain it. So, yeah, I got in my notes, like, if it hurts, it's not for you, go higher. So, if you're, like, believing a certain thing that makes you feel less than, then it means you're like operating from the little lower self, because you're feeling like you need to justify your worth by some outside means, when you're like, you gotta look within, like you the one. I mean, it's annoying to hear that, because we want to get like validation from other people, but that ain't always guaranteed. So, like, you're your own best friend, or you can be. Like, I'm my own worst enemy a lot. But I don't have to be, like, because I see what you're trying to do. And you ain't gonna do it no more. I don't know if this made any sense. I really wish it did. Like, I hope it did. I want to help. I never just explain things